Does the average Presbyterian donate less than the average Catholic in church on Sundays? The 59 randomly observed members of the Presbyterian Church donated an average of $26 with a standard deviation of $14. The 40 randomly observed members of the Catholic Church donated an average of $28 with a standard deviation of $5. What can be concluded at the alpha equal to 0.01 level of significance? So we're going to basically test the claim that Presbyterians donate less than Catholics on Sunday. So step one in a hypothesis test is to always state the null and alternative hypothesis. So alpha here is we're given as the level of significance of 0.01. Next we have to state the alternative and the null. So this claim involves a difference of means. So the null hypothesis is going to be that the difference of the two means, where we'll take the population mean for Presbyterians to be denoted by mu sub 1, and that of the Catholics a mu sub 2. So we're saying the difference of average donations for the population means is 0 from the null hypothesis. And since we want mu 1 to be less than mu 2, we will run a left tail test, which means we have less than 0 in the alternate hypothesis. Okay, so we have a left tail alternate hypothesis. All right, now we collect the data, and based on the data, we crunch a test statistic. The sample mean, based on 59 individuals from the Presbyterian Church, was $26, minus the sample mean, based on 40 individuals from the Catholic Church, was $28. And then we divide that by the square root of the standard deviation. The standard deviation for each one of these was $14. And then we square that, divide by 59, plus the standard deviation of the Catholic donations, which was $5, and we square that and divide by the sample size. So that was 40. Okay, so computing that and rounding our test statistic to one decimal point gives us negative 1.01. Next step is to calculate the p-value. So the sampling distribution we're using here is the student's t distribution. And we know that the mean of this particular distribution is 0. And we observed a test statistic of negative 1.01. That's basically telling us that our observation of 26 minus 28, in other words, negative 2, is one standard deviation below the mean of the sampling distribution of difference of sample means. And so the p-value is just the probability of observing a negative 1.01 or less. And so the p-value there is what we're interested in. And the p-value, the way you would calculate the p-value is using some kind of technology. So for example, using Excel, I would type in equals into a cell, norm, not norm, but my apologies, t dot dis, the test statistic of negative 1.01, and the degrees of freedom. And the degrees of freedom here is going to be the minimum of 59 minus 1 and 40 minus 1. So in other words, the minimum of 58 and 39. So we can see the degrees of freedom would be 39, and then comma 1. So to find the p-value, we type in equals t dot dis negative 1.01, comma 39, comma 1, And then this will give us a p-value, say rounded to 4 decimal places, about 0.1601. Now, based on that value, we conclude the test. So the p-value of 0.1601 is going to be greater than our alpha of 0.01, which implies we do not reject the null hypothesis, which is denoted as H sub 0. We do not reject it. Okay, so now we conclude or interpret your conclusion in the context of the problem. So you might say something like the following. At 0.01 level of significance, there is insufficient evidence to reject the difference of means of donations for Presbyterians and Catholics is 0. In other words, there is no reason not to believe both Presbyterians and Catholics donate about the same. Okay, so now using the calculator that I provided you, we would input our information necessary to calculate the test statistic, which if you look at the formula for the test statistic, it involves X bar 1, X bar 2. So we know on the problem that we know we had $26 donated by Presbyterians on average based on a sample of size 59 churchgoers. And then we had a sample of 40 Catholics where we got a sample mean donation of $28. And their sample standard deviation respectively were $14 and $5. The mean 1 minus mean 2 is set to be 0, which we want. Okay, so then we answer the question, what parameter does the test involve? Well, this involves a difference of means, so mu1 minus mu2. It's a left-tail test, so make sure this is selected to be less than. We're using a significance level of 0.01. And what is the sampling distribution? So in this case, we're using the student t-distribution. And what does the sample test statistic look like? So the formula closest looks like it would be the second one from last here. It's not easy to format mathematics in a drop-down menu, so that's the best we could do there. Okay, so here to the right, you see our test statistic of about negative 1.01 and our left tail p-value of about 0.1601. Conclusion, failed to reject the null since the p-value is greater than alpha. Data is not significant in this case.